The Zephyrian High Command had made their decision with the cold precision their species was known for throughout the galaxy. Earth would fall within a solar rotation, its primitive inhabitants crushed beneath the weight of superior technology and military doctrine. The invasion fleet had already assembled at the edge of the Sol system, 3,000 warships bearing the crimson insignia of the hegemony. Admiral Kextar stood before the holographic display in his flagship's command center, his forearms crossed in satisfaction as he reviewed the tactical reports. Earth's defenses were laughable. A handful of orbital stations, primitive kinetic weapons, and vessels that barely qualified as warships by Zephyrian standards. The humans had only achieved faster-than-light travel within the last century, making them little more than children playing with fire. "Sir," his communications officer chittered, mandibles clicking nervously, "we're receiving a transmission from the human homeworld." "Already begging for mercy?" Kextar's voice carried the amused contempt typical of his warrior caste. "Put it through." The hologram flickered, revealing a middle-aged human female in what appeared to be formal attire. She stood behind a podium bearing symbols Kextar didn't recognize, though intelligence reports suggested they represented something called the United Nations. "Greetings," the human began, her voice steady despite facing certain annihilation. "I am Secretary General Maria Santos of the United Earth Government. We are aware of your fleet's presence in our system." Kextar gestured dismissively. "I am Admiral Kextar of the Zephyrian hegemony. You will surrender unconditionally within 1 standard hour, or we will reduce your pathetic world to ash." The human's expression didn't change. "We appreciate your directness, Admiral. However, we have a different proposal. We'd like to hold a vote." The bridge fell silent. Several officers exchanged confused glances, their translator implant struggling with the concept. "A vote?" Kextar's voice carried dangerous confusion. "Yes, democracy is rather important to us humans. We'd like to put the question of surrender to our global population. Surely you can spare 24 hours for such a momentous decision." Kextar's laugh was like grinding metal. "You think to delay the inevitable with this vote nonsense? Very well, 24 hours. It will give us time to position our forces for maximum psychological impact." The transmission ended, and Kextar settled back in his command throne. The tactical officer, a younger Zephyrian named Vexon, approached cautiously. "Sir, our intelligence on human voting suggests it could take considerably longer than 24 hours. Kextar cut him off. "Then we demonstrate what happens to species that waste our time." What neither Kextar nor his officers understood was that the vote had already begun the moment Secretary General Santos finished speaking. Across Earth, in a feat of coordination that would have impressed any military strategist, 8 billion humans were accessing their personal communication devices, logging into secure networks and casting their ballots. The question was simple: should humanity surrender to the Zephyrian hegemony? But humanity, as the galaxy was about to learn, had never been particularly good at doing what others expected. Dr. James Chen, chief xenobiologist at the Luna Research Station, cast his vote while simultaneously uploading terabytes of data to Earth's quantum networks. Like thousands of other scientists across the system, he had been working feverishly since first contact protocols were established decades earlier. Captain Sarah Williams voted from the bridge of the ESV Defiance, humanity's newest dreadnought, while coordinating with similar vessels hidden in the asteroid belt. The primitive human fleet was about to reveal capabilities that Zephyrian intelligence had somehow overlooked. 10-year-old Marcus Thompson voted from his school tablet in Neo, Singapore, then returned to his class project, a paper on historical resistance movements that his teacher had assigned with unusual urgency. 18 hours into the voting period, something unprecedented happened. Kextar's communications array detected massive data streams emanating from Earth, but not toward space, toward Earth itself. The humans weren't calling for help. They were talking to each other. "Sir," the communications officer's voice held a note of concern, "we're detecting coordinated activity across the entire planet. Military installations are powering up. Civilian infrastructure is shifting to unknown configurations, and their information networks are operating at theoretical maximum capacity." Kextar dismissed it with a wave. Panic. Nothing more. But Vexon had been monitoring human communications, and what he discovered sent ice through his exoskeleton. "Admiral, I don't think they're panicking. I think they're organizing." At exactly 24 hours, Secretary General Santos reappeared on their screens. Behind her, the same podium, the same formal setting, but something had changed in her eyes. Admiral Kextar, the votes have been tallied. 8,437,612 votes cast. The results were unanimous. Kextar leaned forward. You surrender, then? Santos smiled, the first expression of emotion she had shown. Not exactly. The vote was to reject surrender, but that wasn't the only question on the ballot. The view screen split, showing data streams that made Kextar's officers scramble to their stations. Earth's primitive orbital defenses were revealing themselves to be camouflaged weapon platforms. The asteroid belt was lighting up with the energy signatures of an entire hidden fleet. And from Earth itself, launch signatures, thousands of them. The second question, Santos continued as alarms began blaring throughout the Zephyrian fleet, was whether humanity should demonstrate why our species has never been successfully conquered by anyone, anywhere, at any time in our history. That vote, she said as the first wave of human missiles reached the outer edge of the Zephyrian formation, was also unanimous. Kextar watched in growing horror as his superior forces found themselves outmaneuvered, outgunned and completely outmatched by a species that had somehow weaponized the very concept of collective decision-making. Every human seemed to know exactly what to do, as if the entire species had become a single coordinated organism. The invasion ended before it began, not because humanity was too strong, but because they had done something the Zephyrian military doctrine couldn't account for. They had asked everyone what they thought, listened to the answer, and acted on it with the unified will of an entire world. In the aftermath, as Zephyrian survivors fled the system, Vexon would later write in his report, "We underestimated their technology. We underestimated their military capability. But most dangerously, we underestimated what happens when 8 billion individuals choose to become one people. The humans had held a vote. The galaxy would remember the results.